a young girl taken from her home, forced into a palace where whispers of power echo through the walls. A kingdom where everything is not as it seems, and a wicked plan is brewing in the darkest corners of the royal court. A plan so sinister, it would wipe out an entire people. Her name is Esther, a girl with a hidden identity, born into the tribe of Israel, a captive in a foreign land. She never asked for this. She never dreamed of royal life. But the fate of her people now rests in her hands. Behind these palace walls, a deadly plot is being whispered, one that threatens to erase the Jewish people from the face of the earth. And Esther, she sits caught in the middle, with no choice but to make an impossible decision: stay silent and live, or speak up and risk it all. This is the story of Queen Esther, the woman who risked everything to save her people. Welcome to my channel, where we uncover the stories that shaped history, stories of hidden heroes, secret plots, and divine intervention. If you love discovering the untold mysteries of the Bible, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others who might need to hear this powerful story. Esther Sid's life began far from the royal courts of Persia. Born in exile, she was a girl like many others, simple, unassuming, raised by her cousin Mordecai, a man of faith and integrity. Though an orphan, Esther Sid's life was full of love and care. Mordecai, a gatekeeper at the royal palace, raised her with love and wisdom. He taught her the ways of their people, the laws of their God. "Remember who you are, Esther," he would say. "You are a child of Israel. Never forget your roots. The God of our ancestors watches over you, even when it feels like all hope is lost." Esther grew up under Mordecai's guidance. Though she never knew it, the destiny that awaited her would require all the strength and faith he had instilled in her. In the halls of the mighty palace, King Xerxes ruled with an iron fist. The whispers of power echoed through these corridors, and the fate of Esther, like so many others, was about to be forever intertwined with the kingdom's darkest secrets. Queen Vashti, known for her beauty and strength, refused to obey the king's command. For her courage, she was cast aside, and a search began for a new queen, one who would capture the king's heart and stand by his side. Esther, a Jewish girl of humble origin, was summoned to the royal court. Her beauty, though uninvited, could not go unnoticed, and soon she would find herself in the heart of the palace, where life would never be the same. "Esther, you must not reveal that you are Jewish. Keep your heritage hidden. Do not tell them who you are. The court is full of treachery, and the king's eyes are not always kind. Your beauty will be your strength, but your silence will protect you."
"Thank you, Your Majesty."
Though Esther was unaware of her divine purpose, her beauty and humility would be her strength. She was about to become something far greater than she had ever imagined. After months of preparation, Esther was presented to the king. The moment her eyes met Xerxes' gaze, something shifted. It was not just her beauty that captivated him. It was her grace, her strength, her quiet resolve. "You are different. You will be my queen."
"Thank you, Your Majesty."
Esther had been chosen, not just for her beauty, but for something deeper, something she could not yet understand. From that moment, she was not just a girl from Susa, she was the queen of Persia. Every kingdom has its villains, those who seek power at any cost. In the court of King Xerxes, no villain was greater than Haman, the king's chief advisor, full of ambition and pride, his eyes fixed on nothing but power. He rose quickly, taking advantage of every opportunity to solidify his place at the throne, manipulating the king with flattery and deceit. His ambitions knew no bounds. He saw the people of the kingdom as pawns to be moved around on a chessboard of his own making. Haman was ruthless and cold. His power was absolute, his influence unrivaled. He commanded the loyalty of those around him through fear and manipulation. But there was one man, Mordecai, a humble gatekeeper, who refused to bow to him. And this refusal, this simple act of defiance, ignited a rage in Haman's heart, one that would consume him. It was not merely an affront to his ego, it was an insult to his very soul, a challenge to his supremacy. And from this moment, the seeds of destruction were sown. Driven by a hate that twisted his mind, Haman sought a solution that would not only punish Mordecai, but punish an entire people. He set his sights on the Jews, Mordecai's people. In his mind, the annihilation of this group was justified. They represented everything he despised. Their defiance would be wiped out, and in the wake of their destruction, Haman would rise even higher. His plot to exterminate the Jews was coldly calculated, a deliberate move designed to ensure that no one would ever dare challenge him again. To carry out his plan, Haman approached King Xerxes, his puppet. The king, blissfully ignorant of the true nature of the man who stood before him, trusted Haman implicitly. With smooth words and a calculated tone, Haman crafted a lie that would seal the fate of an entire nation. He painted the Jews as rebels, a threat to the empire's stability. To the king, it was an easy decision. A decree was signed, and a death sentence was laid upon the heads of thousands, all to satisfy the whims of one man's greed. But even the most carefully laid plans can be disrupted, for there was a woman, a queen, who stood at the heart of the storm, a woman with a secret that could change everything. Esther, a Jew, had been chosen as queen in a twist of fate. A girl raised in obscurity now found herself in the palace, amidst the riches and power of the Persian court. It was a place she never imagined herself to be, but it was here, in this gilded cage, that her life would be thrust into the center of this grand drama. Esther's journey was not one she walked alone. When news of Haman's wicked plot reached Mordecai, he knew the gravity of the moment. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and cried out in anguish at the city gates. His sorrow spilled into the streets, a visible sign of the pain that threatened to consume them all. Word of Mordecai's mourning quickly reached Esther within the palace walls. She sent her trusted servant Hathach to learn what troubled him. And so it was that Hathach found Mordecai sitting among the grieving Jews, his face etched with despair, but his spirit unbroken. It was there, outside the opulent palace, where their fateful exchange began. Mordecai urgently, yet trusting, Hathach, tell Queen Esther this, a decree has been issued to destroy our people. Every Jew in the empire will be killed. Go back to her, tell her she must go before the king, and beg for mercy. This is no ordinary crisis. Her silence could seal our fate. But when Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's plea, she hesitated. The danger was real. She knew the risks better than anyone. No one approached the king without being summoned. To do so meant death, unless the king extended his golden scepter. And yet Mordecai's words carried weight far beyond her fears. Esther knew what it meant to risk her life for others, but in that moment, standing before the king, it was not just her life that hung in the balance, it was the fate of her people. And in that moment, when she stood before Xerxes, she spoke words that carried the power to save or destroy an entire nation. Her courage in that moment was a light, a beacon that would forever shine in the hearts of her people. And then, in a gesture that could have meant her death, something extraordinary happened. The king, moved by her courage, extended his golden scepter toward her, a sign of mercy, a signal that she was not only permitted to speak, but invited to do so. It was the moment Esther had prayed for, the moment when everything changed. The king's gaze softened, and his voice, though tinged with curiosity, was full of gentleness. Esther, though still shaken, found strength in the king's gesture. The scepter, an instrument of life and death, was now extended to her. She had been given a chance to speak, to plead for the lives of her people. And in that moment, when the weight of the world seemed to lift, she found her voice.
If it pleases the king, I have prepared a banquet for you and Haman. There, I will make my request known. Please come, and I will share with you the matter that weighs so heavily on my heart.
Esther's invitation was a strategic one. She had not revealed her hand yet. She had bided her time, knowing that the moment for direct confrontation had not yet arrived. Instead, she chose subtlety. A banquet, a gathering of the king and his most trusted advisor, Haman. It was a calculated move, one that would draw them in, set the stage for the revelation, and allow Esther to control the timing of the moment that would ultimately change the fate of her people. After Esther's fateful meeting with the king, where she carefully laid the groundwork for what would come next, the time had arrived for the first banquet. The stage was set, but Esther's heart still carried the weight of her people's fate. She knew that this gathering was just the beginning of a much larger plan, a plan that could either save her people or seal their doom. As Esther walked through the palace, preparations for the banquet were in full swing. The aroma of roasted meats and fragrant spices filled the air. The grand banquet hall was adorned with golden tapestries, fine silks, and polished silverware. Servants moved quietly, setting the tables, their movements graceful and precise. Esther's mind, however, was focused on a singular goal. The king and Haman must be intrigued, but unaware of the true purpose of the feast. The king, eager to enjoy the feast Esther had prepared, entered the banquet hall with Haman at his side. The two men were unaware that this gathering was not for celebration, but for the beginning of Esther's carefully orchestrated plan. Esther stood waiting, her royal robes flowing around her, her face calm, but her heart racing with anticipation. Haman, full of himself and basking in his position of favor with the king, was delighted by the queen's invitation. It was a rare honor to dine with the queen herself. His chest puffed out with pride as he stepped into the grand hall, fully confident that his power over the empire was unchallenged. To Haman, this was nothing more than an affirmation of his supremacy. He had manipulated the king, convinced him to issue a decree that would annihilate the Jews, and now he was enjoying the fruits of his machinations. The queen's invitation seemed to him like the final confirmation of his untouchable status. Esther, though, knew that appearances were deceiving. She had prepared the banquet not to celebrate, but to create the perfect moment to strike. She had invited the king and Haman, yes, but only to use their curiosity to her advantage. Tonight, she would not reveal everything. She would wait, and in that waiting, she would move closer to her goal. The room fell quiet for a moment, as the king and Haman exchanged glances. Curiosity flickered in the king's eyes, and Haman, ever eager to please, nodded enthusiastically. Esther's invitation to return the next day was deliberate. She had set her plan in motion, but she knew that the time for direct confrontation had not yet come. She would wait, and the king's curiosity would grow. The trap had been set, and all she had to do was wait for the right moment. Xerxes, feeling both surprised and guilty, summoned a servant. His voice was urgent, the weight of his new resolve pressing on Haman, ever full of himself, believed the king was referring to him. His ego swelled with pride, his chest puffed as he imagined the honor that would come his way. Eager to bask in more glory, he stepped forward, ready to offer his extravagant suggestion. Haman's words came easily, filled with self-assurance. He envisioned himself as the object of the king's favor. He didn't yet realize that fate had other plans. The king's gaze turned cold as he looked at Haman, his expression unreadable. With an icy calm, he spoke the words that would unravel everything Haman had planned. Haman's smile faltered, his eyes widened in disbelief. The very man he had sought to destroy, the man he had considered beneath him, was now the one he was commanded to honor. The king's words fell like stones, heavy and unforgiving. Haman, once so full of himself, now found himself carrying out a task that would humiliate him in front of the entire kingdom. Forced to honor Mordecai, Haman's pride was crushed under the weight of his own arrogance. He had to lead Mordecai through the streets, draped in royal robes, mounted on the king's horse, as the people cheered. The very people he had sought to annihilate now watched him parade around, humiliated by the man he had once hoped to see destroyed. Once the proudest man in Persia, Haman was now reduced to a pawn in a game far greater than he could comprehend. As Mordecai rode proudly, the people of Susa cheered, and Haman's pride was stripped bare, leaving only the raw truth of his defeat. The irony of it all was too much for Haman to bear. The very man he plotted to hang on gallows was now being honored by the king. His fall from grace had begun, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. After the humiliation, Haman returned to the palace, his spirit broken. His arrogance, once a shield, had shattered. But little did he know, the true storm was still to come. Esther's moment of reckoning was fast approaching, and the banquet she had planned with such careful precision was now ready to unfold. The time had come. The second banquet was upon them, and Esther's carefully laid plans had brought her to this moment. The king's curiosity had been piqued, and now, with Haman at her side, she was about to reveal the truth. But the question was, would the king believe her, or would her courage be her undoing? For the first time, Esther's voice broke through the silence, filled with the weight of truth and desperation. She had spoken the words that could save her people, or destroy her. And in that moment, the king, unprepared for the revelation, demanded an answer.
My king, if I have found favor in your eyes, and if it pleases the king, let my life be granted to me, and my people as well, for we have been sold to be destroyed, slaughtered, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I would have kept silent, for such distress would not be worth troubling the king. But this evil man, this wicked man, has plotted our destruction.
In that moment, the silence in the room shattered. Gasps erupted from every corner, reverberating off the walls of the opulent hall. Courtiers and servants recoiled in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief as they turned toward Haman. His once confident facade crumbled before their eyes. His smile, so sure and smug only moments ago, evaporated into a look of utter disbelief. His face twisted, as if he could hardly believe what he had just heard, his arrogance transforming into desperate fear. The king's eyes, wide with shock and rage, darted back and forth between Esther and Haman. The truth hung heavy in the air, suffocating everyone in the room. The man whom Xerxes had trusted above all others, the man who had once been untouchable, was now exposed as the villain who sought to destroy an entire people. The betrayal was beyond measure, and in that moment, Haman's fate was sealed. The chaos in the room was palpable. Haman, once the most powerful man in the kingdom next to the king himself, now stood before them, a man broken and exposed, his very existence now hanging by a thread. The room, once full of grandeur and confidence, was now consumed with shock, fear, and the realization of what had just been revealed. The evil that Haman had set into motion could not be undone. His decree, once sealed by the king's signet ring, had been issued throughout the empire. The fate of the Jewish people had been sealed in that moment, destruction, death, and annihilation, with no hope of escape. But the king's hand, once used to condemn, would now be used to deliver. Though the king's previous decree could not be revoked, Xerxes had the power to issue a new one. He could not erase the darkness that had been cast over the Jewish people, but he could offer them a chance to defend themselves, to fight for their lives. With that decree, a new dawn broke for the Jewish people. They would no longer be helpless victims. They would stand tall, united in their resolve. Their enemies, once so confident in their power, now faced a force they had never anticipated. The day came, and with it the Jewish people stood strong. No longer were they a scattered, oppressed people. They were united in their cause, in their fight for survival. And on that day, they proved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and faith would see them through. And on that day, the Jewish people were victorious. Their enemies, who had once thought themselves invincible, fell before them. The plot to destroy them had been thwarted, and the people of Israel had been delivered from the brink of annihilation. After the victory, Mordecai was elevated to the position Haman had once held. The man who had saved the king's life, who had stood firm in his faith, now stood as the second most powerful man in Persia. His rise was a testament to the power of righteousness over evil. Esther, the queen who had risked everything to save her people, remained a beloved ruler. Her courage had changed the course of history. She was not only queen of Persia, but also a beacon of hope and strength for the Jewish people. And so the victory was celebrated, not just in Persia, but throughout the empire. A new holiday was born from this deliverance, a holiday that would forever remind the Jewish people of the day they were saved, the day they stood strong and triumphed over their enemies. To this day the Jewish people celebrate Purim, a remembrance of the great deliverance that saved them. It is a day of joy, of feasting and of remembrance. A day when the courage of one woman and the faith of a people brought about a victory that would echo through history. On the day of victory, the Jewish people of Persia celebrated their survival. The decree that had once condemned them to death was now overturned. They had been given not only their lives, but the right to defend themselves and reclaim their dignity. The day was marked with festivity, joy, and the triumph of faith over fear. Purim became a day not only of celebration but of remembrance. It was a reminder of the courage and faith of Queen Esther, the intervention of Mordecai, and the divine protection that had shielded them. The Jews were united in joy, not only for their deliverance, but for the bond of their community, which had held strong even in the darkest of times. Every year the story of Esther is read aloud on Purim, reminding the Jewish people of how one woman's courage and the faith of her people changed the course of their history. It is a story of survival, of standing up in the face of evil, and of the power of God's protection. Purim is a time for feasting, for giving gifts to the poor, for celebrating the bond of family, and for remembering the strength of the Jewish people. It is a day to honor the bravery of Esther, the wisdom of Mordecai, and the faith that led them to victory. And as the Jewish people of Persia danced in the streets, they knew that they were safe, not just because of a decree from the king, but because of the unshakable courage that had been passed down through generations. Esther's story is not just a tale from the past, it is a reminder to us all that even in the darkest of times, courage and faith can lead us to victory. And no matter the odds, the light of hope will always shine through.